Hello, welcome to Breck Buzz, the show that's going to talk all about what's been happening at the Breckenridge Town Council over the last month. This is our April segment, so we're actually looking back at March. And to help me kind of fill you in on a lot of the stuff the council debates and talks about over that last month period is Mayor Pro Tem Mark Burke.
Oh, yeah.
I want to thank Mark for joining me. We're going to go through a series of the issues that the council's been debating and kind of give the public a feel for the tough decision making the council has to go through. Well, let's start off with a good news topic. The one that the council's been working on for a good year now, which is affordable housing and rental housing, which has become fairly critical in our community. We're almost ready to break ground on Pinewood 2, right?
Yeah, it's real exciting because I think, as everybody knows, we've got a real shortage of especially rental units in the town. And so what the town is doing, we're able to partner with an LLP, I believe, limited liability partnership. We were able to get through low income housing tax credits through CHAFA. We were able to get about $330,000 a year for 10 years.
Right.
And so with this organization that we partnered with, they're going to be putting about $3.3 million into the project. It's going to be built right beyond Pinewood 1. 45 apartment units on about 3 acres of land. And we also created the Breckenridge Housing Authority, which is really the town, the council. So we'll be partnering with them. They're going to be taking ownership of the property while the construction is ongoing, and they're going to operate the project as well. But it is going to be a town project. It's going to be for low AMI. Probably, at least what we had discussed, was no more than 60% of AMI. The benefit of this project, being that it is a town project, is we can go as low as we want. So we can really try to, benefit those people in our community that need it really the most. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's a very, very unique opportunity. Not unique so much. It's a new opportunity for the town,
right, working
with the low-income housing credits, tax credits that we cannot take advantage of, but we can offer them to this LLP, and I think it's is it West or the Midwest Equity Group?
Right. Will be the end up.
Yeah, so it's really exciting, and I think it's going to start this summer, Tim.
Right, spring, hopefully a spring groundbreaking. Document-wise, you're going to be looking at a lot of documents before the end of this month,
right?
April.
And I think it's just a matter of dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. And it's not a new deal. Certainly, it's a new deal for Breckenridge. It's probably the way of the future that we were able to bring in $3.3 million of outside investment into a town project. So it's truly a public-private partnership that's taking advantage of the things that we have to offer. And boy, this has been a crazy year for housing.
Yeah.
And we've heard a lot about home ownership, but there's so much need right now in the apartment rentals. So this will put a big impact. Is it that I'm trying to remember, Tim? I know there were some efficiencies. 1 bedroom. Are there any 2 bedroms at all?
No 2 bedrooms.
Just
either all going to be the smaller units.
Yep.
Right.
So it's
which
really,
is the greatest need.
Yeah, it's really the workers in this community that help make this community what it is.
Right. But there may be some other projects coming down the road with some other different size units. 450, and of course the potential with a partnership out with CMC.
Yeah, boy, I hope both. We know that the one on 450, which is across from, for those that don't know where 450 is, it's across from where 7-Eleven is, where the recycle center is right now. They are in the process of, designing the new recycle center, which I'm sure we'll talk about after. But that, in partnership with the town of Breckenridge, we're going to be doing some housing. I don't think we've decided whether it's all apartments or some home ownership, but that's certainly going to impact us. So we've got that project going. The staff has been in negotiations, or at least speaking with Colorado Mountain College, where their land is off of Block 11, where the parking lot is. So there are so many opportunities, and boy, we're doing it quickly.
Right.
I hope the one with CMC really comes to fruition. I mean, just today we heard that they're going to be adding 2 new bachelor's degree programs, one in applied science and one in teacher education, which means, and I think Dave Askelin said they were up 40% in applications.
Right.
These are people that work in our community. So they come to school here, they work in our community. So they're going to need housing. So I think a true partnership could be really figured into that.
Exciting for the community.
It is exciting.
Right. So,
and one other thing, Tim, I thought, we had, I don't know if it was March or maybe it was prior to that, but we had a meeting with the school district too. And so I know the staff has been now meeting with the school district, that what I think the town has proven, and particularly the staff has proven that the town does very well, which is build housing. I mean, we've proven that with Valley Brook, all kinds of awards, and it was really done internally. But the school district, to partner with us, they have a real need with their teachers to be able to maintain their workforce. If we partnered where we were to develop the project, but they may have the land or something that we can partner with, and they seem to be really excited about that as well.
Always looking for opportunities.
Yeah, it's exciting. It really is.
Well, let's jump to another topic that maybe wasn't so much fun. An unusual one. Just kind of creeped up. There was a group in the community that seems to have some issues related to fluoride in water. Kind of a common practice around the country, and one that we've done for many years, I think going back to the 80s. But the council wanted to have at least good information. So what was the nature of that conversation?
Very emotional conversation. And not for the council as much, but for the citizens who are against fluoride in the water. I think we tried to listen to all the facts and not react emotionally, but tried to make good decisions. There is a group that believes that it's a poison. And in and of itself, it is a poison. I mean, if it's ingested, but not to the limit that we put in. As a matter of fact, almost every medical association, everyone that I've researched is in favor of it. So the town has been adding, small amounts of fluoride to prevent decay in young children. I think it's been since '85, as you said, the mid '80s. And we've had no issues, but the town, certainly the council wanted to hear from our citizens, and we had a pretty lengthy discussion. The mayor allowed the citizens group to speak, quite frankly, quite long, because traditionally it's 3 minutes per person, but it was during a work session, which traditionally we don't have people that are allowed to speak. It was an administrative decision in the '80s, so it's not legislative, and I think the group that's looking at the fluoride issue was thinking that it was something that was done by the voters, and it wasn't. It was administrative, so that's why it's the decision of the council even at this time.
Right.
And so I think there may have been one or two that were kind of on the fence, but I think at least 6 of us at the council felt very clearly from the facts that at this point, let's keep it in the water. But we don't gain anything by keeping it in the water. I mean, personally, or even the town, it's not like it's a moneymaker for the town. It's just something that everybody that we've asked, all the medical associations have said that it's the right thing to do. In fact, from 2004, I think, to 2012, in the United States, it's gone from 68% of the public water has fluoride to like 75% now.
Right.
So it's actually increased over the last 10 years or so. But we're going to keep an eye on it. We promised the citizens group that as a council and the staff that will continue to watch the information that comes out if anything changes dramatically. But again, I want to be fair to the citizens that we did hear it. And I think it was a tough decision because it is an emotional decision for people. It's almost like the vaccinations for kids.
Yeah.
There are people that just feel very strongly against it, and there's people that feel very strongly for it. But all medical experts have told us, and all the associations, it's the right thing to do. But quite frankly, if we would take it out, the ones that would suffer the most are probably the lower income young kids in this community who don't have the luxury of having the dental care that maybe some of us can provide for our kids.
Right.
So I think we all kind of went on the side of let's take care of the kids that really may need it. But I think it is an emotional issue. We recognize that. We heard the citizens, and we'll certainly keep an eye on it. And again, to reiterate that it's an administrative decision, not legislative.
Right. And very passionate, obviously, but also even the scientific community is a little bit unsure as to the perfect answer to everything. And so I think that was part of the reason why this issue even becomes a controversy.
Yeah, and you can find information, you can find, as in any argument, you can find facts on both sides. And so at some point, I think elected officials or anybody that's making decisions has to look at all the information and make the best decision based upon the facts. And again, you know, as a layman, I'm not a doctor or an expert or a scientist, but you have to rely on those people that are. Summit County Health Department even are strong supporters. As a matter of fact, the head of the health department, Summit County Health,
spoke, yeah.
Dan came to our meeting and spoke, and passionate about keeping it in the water system. So, you know, we have an obligation to listen to all sides. But, you know, again, keep an open mind, and we'll continue to watch it.
Good. One of the last key properties that the town owns and is kind of unplanned and is actually a gravel pit at this time is what we call the McCain Property, located at Coin Valley and Highway 9. The council has started an exercise to take a look at what that property in the future will become. One piece is pretty obvious, the Blue River.
Right.
But the council started a discussion about giving direction to the consultants about what are the types of uses that land should potentially accommodate. So what was the nature of that conversation? Yeah,
it was a great conversation, and we had a great presentation from the architects and the engineering group that the town has contracted with. That's exciting. You know, I don't know how many total acres, Tim, is that project?
You know, that's good. I'm not sure.
But it's a lot.
It's a good size parcel.
It's you know, the largest single piece of land available, still not available, but still in Breckenridge. But basically, we got a presentation about the master plan, about, you know, the needs. You know, and for instance, we know for a fact that we need snow storage. You know, the town has looked at other places to store the snow, but the reality is the cost to be starting to move it further out of town is just, you know, something that we just don't want to take on at this point. We're going to need parking when we continue to develop Block 11. We're going to need perhaps an additional parking or the replacement of the 500 spaces. So that will play out. We looked at service commercial. So, you know, where does that play a role? We looked at housing. Is there going to be any housing at all on that area? We already have agreed to do the last phase of the Blue River restoration. So that will take place. That's exciting. I think that's going to really improve that area a whole deal. So it's going to be really open to the public, open space. And we also are going to be putting the recycle center there as well. And a piece of it, I don't know if it's 2.5 acres.
Right at the northeast corner or northwest corner.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So it's exciting, you know, to be part of that. I think for any council member, it's exciting to be part of those kind of decisions that are going to live with this town forever. But we want to make sure we do it right. We know that there are going to be service commercial needs as we move forward down the road. There are some things that will never go away, such as, like I said, the parking and snow storage. So. And there was talk in the past about a reservoir, but now with the new water plant, where we may not need that, and that was going to be a big expense. So we probably might be able to forego that. But it's exciting.
All right, and there is some service commercial out there right now that exists right along that property.
There's you know, we have a landscaper. We've got the Bear Place. We've got you know, a few, 4 or 5. And so we don't want to tie the hands of the council or the town by signing long-term leases, because we don't know what it's going to be. And we want to make sure we place the service commercial in the right areas on that parcel. But I think we've honored all of the current leases, at least for the next few years. So we've honored all of those. So nobody's being displaced. There's no business that we're throwing out, and nobody's going to be out of business for the next. So they all have a chance to plan and prepare as we move forward.
Mark, one of the other topics the council's been working on over the last, since actually the last election, where we actually had the ballot question related to childcare on it, was to revamp the childcare program and really focus on what the public talked about in terms of concerns about how that program operated. The committee came back with some final changes, and so now it's kind of ready to be off and running, but we ought to highlight what were the focus of some of those changes that address some of the concerns that were out there.
Okay, I'm going to do my best on this. You know, as you mentioned, Tim, I think the first thing was that we established this committee as a result of, it was actually prior to the election. We established a committee to review the scholarship program as it was known prior. And then when the election came out, it was 2013 that the citizens did not vote to support the tax initiative for childcare. We then did a survey to all the voters, and the survey came back at least the way I read the survey, and I think the way we all understood the survey, is that people, it wasn't that they didn't support childcare, they just didn't want another tax, and they wanted the scholarship program looked at. And so this committee has spent, a year and a half studying this issue for us. taking the concerns of the citizens that came back in the survey, what the concerns were, and they've made several recommendations. Probably the most significant one is that we've agreed to hire a full-time administrator to oversee the program that works for the town. If we're going to be committing these kind of dollars, the town, we felt that was important. So I'm not sure if we've hired that person, but
in the process.
In the
right.
process, I know we're in the process, and also a half-time person as well to administer the scholarship program. So the administrator will be looking at the total program, the centers themselves, if we're achieving the successes that we want to have, relationships, whether there are joint efforts that all the childcare centers can work together on. And then as we talk about the scholarship program in particular, this half-time position, I think it was the same amount of money that we were using, that we were contracting out for early childhood education program as well. So it was really no additional expense. But this person, their job is going to be to make sure that we're administering the scholarship program properly in the way we want to do it. So the recommendations that came back and were approved by the council, I probably won't remember all of them, but I can probably touch base on some. One was, first of all, to have a differential between out of town and in town.
Right.
So town of Breck residents, and we heard that from our citizens in the election and the survey that came afterwards. There will be, I think it's 10% difference between those that are in town of Breckenridge and out of town residents, what they'll be receiving on the scholarship program. We also agreed that we will do away with the per child cap. Because there are, I think, 26% of our were overburdened because we had a cap on there, and it was not just based upon the AMI. So we're going to be doing more with the AMI the same way we do, I believe, with housing.
Right.
So that was another recommendation. So it's going to be based on their income. One of the things I think several on the council had talked about, and some of the citizens, was that the asset test, which is unusual. It's funny, it sounds like it just makes sense, but when the staff did their research, there are very few communities use that. But we're going to, we've heard our citizens, so we're going to be looking at total assets that a family has, with some exceptions. We're not going to look at their primary residence. We're not going to look at college savings. We're not going to look at healthcare accounts, which I think is good. So, I think we've really implemented, I think the committee took a long, hard look. It's so easy to sit on the sidelines and to be a critic. And I think we've all done that with all different issues. But this is really benefiting our workforce. I mean, there is no doubt about it that here we're doing housing, we just talked about apartments and, home ownership. The reality is that people need to also have child education, and early childhood education have been proven to be a great benefit to our kids in our community, and quite frankly all over the country. So those are some of, I think, the biggest changes.
Right.
I think the based upon AMI, the per student cap, the asset testing.
No more free days.
That's right, no more free days. It's going to be based upon usage, how many days they go, and I think if they do change the schedule, they may even get some
penalties, right?
So I think they took a fair and honest look at it. I think as a council, we need to make sure that after the first year of the new changes, we look at it, because there's also some risk that we really could hurt families. We also may benefit more families, but there was that debate about the in-town versus out-of-town. If people live in the Upper Blue and they work in our community, it's still a great asset to us. But our citizens were pretty clear, and so there is.
And considering they can't find rentals anymore in town,
and that's the other issue. And can our town, we're spending, I don't know, $680,000 on childcare, early childhood education, and I should use early childhood education, not childcare. But what would we need to spend if everybody wanted to keep these people in town? So that argument, that's the debate we have. Really, can we afford to have all of our workforce living in this town? It's a great goal, but financially, I'm not sure we're really going to be able to accomplish that. So we have to consider that when people live in other areas in our county, but they're still working in this community, that we're tax revenue based.
Right. And many times they're spending money in the community even if they don't live here. So,
that's right. You think about the citizens that all live in Blue River, or even in unincorporated Breckenridge. They still go out to dinner here. They shop at City Market. They buy things here. So they are absolutely contributing to our community.
So that program is going to be off and running, but continue to be reviewed by the council to make sure that it stays on focus.
Yeah, and I think we're going to be getting an annual review, and that's one of the administrator's job is to give us an update annually. And I think the first year is going to be really critical to see the results with the changes.
Right.
And hopefully it's going to have a very positive impact and not any negative, but you never know.
Right.
So we have to be aware of it.
Next project, the new recycling center. This is a great partnership between the town and county. It's going to be related to affordable housing, but this was really to look at the plan to make sure the council thinks it looks okay.
Yeah, and I'm glad we did. You know, this new, you know, we have the luxury of having the land on McCain that we just talked about. So the county has agreed with us to move the recycle center and improve it and make it much better off of 450, which we've all used that recycle center, and quite frankly, from the street, it's an eyesore. Yeah. It's difficult. You go there with your bucket and you're climbing upstairs and you're trying to lift your bucket above to dump it. So this was a great partnership where it freed up land on 450 for housing, for workforce housing, with partnership with the county. And they're going to be building, the county is going to be building a new recycle center. And we saw the plans. It's pretty neat. They're going to have a one-way drive, so people that are coming in, they'll all be going one way instead of trying to go in and out. The haulers are going to be having their own separate drive in the back. It will not be visible. Some of the things that we looked at as a town is, do we want to have the, what are they called, the bins or what? No, they're
the big containers.
Yeah, the containers. The large containers. I think there's going to be 12 of them.
The roll-offs, I guess.
The roll-off containers. I think there's about 12 of them. And you know, the debate was, do we want to have them raised, which is obviously a little bit less expensive, or do we want to have them recessed so that so when people dump, they can just dump it in? The council was pretty adamant that we wanted to have them recessed, that we want to make sure that we preserve the looks of that area. So we talked about that. We talked about landscaping and fencing. We definitely do not want chain link fencing. That came out clear. And the town actually was willing to participate with the county to make sure we do the landscaping now right.
Upgrade it a little higher.
To upgrade a little bit higher. And so we looked at, you know, different, you know, ways of revenue. I think it was maybe $200,000. But, you know, there was a discussion that, you know, could the town upfront the money and then over time the county could repay the town? But to get it done now, let's do it right the first time so it has the right appearance. We don't want people when they drive by that to say, boy, there's a recycling center. Our citizens will know where it is, people use it, but we want it to be really look good. We want it to be Breckenridge. And we also were very sensitive. You know, there's some neighbors in that neighboring area that were worried about the trash blowing around. So I think the county has looked at how we can put some type of low-level fencing that can be hidden. So when the wind blows and the trash out in the back, and we heard that from some of the citizens up in the Red Tail Ranch. And so we were very sensitive to that, and the county was very sensitive to that. So I think we're going to have a project that we're going to be very, very proud of. And it has room for expansion because nobody really knows what the future holds for recycling.
Right.
And so they do have room for expansion, and I'm excited about it.
Great. Well, we're going to take a quick break and come back and finish up a couple other items the council's been talking about. You're watching the Breck Buzz. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Breck Buzz. Mark Burke, my guest again today, Mayor Pro Tem.
Or as my kids would say, Mayor Pre-Tem.
Mayor Pre-Tem. And in fact, Mark had to run the meeting last time because our mayor was out of town. Anyway, Mark, we're going to finish up with a couple other items that the council's been chatting about. One of them is a very exciting program that went last year, and we're going to continue this year, but it was a report by the Red, White, and Blue about how well we did with the whole Firewise defensible space type program that we've been working on.
Yeah, boy, I'll tell you, who would have ever thought that this chipping program that was done throughout the whole town, I think it was 690 residences were impacted. I don't even remember how many.
Tons of
3,000 tons. I don't know the numbers, but pretty significant. It's a program that the town participated in, where we actually gave the space at the satellite lot where they could actually use as staging, but also for the mulch, the chips. And then the chips were free to anybody that wanted to take them. But we got the report from that and other things that the town has done and Red, White, and Blue has done, Forest Service has done. it has had a major impact. And so we have agreed to continue that program. I think the county got a grant for $125,000. We've offered $15,000 of our own money, and then we're going to apply for a grant, I think, for $25,000 to put toward this program. So it will start again this summer. We're hoping everybody takes advantage of it because it really is cleaning up the forest floor, which is really fuel if there were ever a forest fire. So, that's at least one area of mitigation. One of the other things the town did, we got a report, is we had offered $10 a tree for any trees that were taken down. That didn't go over well. There was only, I think, about $1,300 throughout the whole town. So we obviously realized that that's not an incentive. That I think just to be able to have a way to get rid of it was more important for people. So we're not going to continue that program. Red, white, and blue is going to continue the free inspection. So they will come out to any homes in the I guess in the upper blue basin, really, that will want an inspection to see what trees should be taken down. The red, white, and blue is going to continue doing that free of charge. So, I've heard people say, I've been on the council and this is my 5th year, and I've heard people who are in the know say, we haven't spent money. I think we've spent millions, Tim.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this town has spent, whether it was, mitigating our own area, but also the incentives at the very beginning. We offered grants to our citizens.
About $500,000 over a couple of years.
Right.
That's right.
So, and I think most of the mitigation now on town open space has been pretty much complete.
That's correct.
So I think that's exciting. I think the town has really stepped up to the plate. The Forest Service is now going to take on a lot more this year. Over the next 5 years, I think the Forest Service and the county. But this is exciting. So I hope everybody takes advantage of clearing out their yards. And it's not just in the mountain areas or the out of town areas. It's downtown. It's the neighborhoods off of Wellington and the old town neighborhoods, Wellington toward town. So Weishorn and those types of things that we want to just make sure we do everything we can to preserve our environment and the safety of our citizens.
And as we say, it's not if a fire will happen; it's more when a fire will happen.
And we've been very fortunate, even with our snowpack this year. Been very fortunate, but all I have to do is look to our neighbors to the west, look at California, and even the Front Range, quite frankly.
Right.
I mean, unless they get some more water right now, there's already been red flag warnings already this month. So something that we always have to keep our eye on. We're lucky enough to have an organization like Red, White, and Blue that works with us very well, and the county. Quite frankly, this is a great program.
And you can't do it just one year. You got to do it year after year. You got to stay on top of it.
That's right. And I don't know if the grant that the county has gotten for $125,000 is ongoing or.
No, they just have to apply every year.
Every year.
They've been successful 2 years in a row. Though,
so let's hope.
Good.
And I hope everybody takes advantage of it.
Take advantage of the Red, White, and Blues offer, and certainly stay on top of it.
Right.
So, Mark, another topic. Interesting transition as the council has been working with our now called the Breckenridge Tourism Office, used to be called the Resort Chamber,
BRC, then GoBreck,
and then GoBreck. But one of the things that's been happening is kind of how do we structure special events?
Right.
Big thing in Breckenridge. We do a lot of them. Town does some. The GoBreck, or now the tourism office, has done some. We have a lot of people coming in wanting to do them. We have people that like to film in town. They come in asking to use our streets and public property. So the council is kind of hearing and starting to flesh out who is going to be responsible for what and who's going to take the lead and what are the criteria, I guess. So they started that conversation last meeting.
Yeah, the Breck Tourism Office has set up a special events committee. I'm not sure the exact name of their committee, but Special Events Committee. Mm-hmm. And it's made up of a real diverse group. With business owners and marketing people and staff from the Breck Tourism and from the town. Mm-hmm. We have a council rep on it. So it's really a diverse group. I think what it does is it's never going to make everybody happy, but I think what it does is it really creates the process so that everybody understands what the process will be. If they want to host a special event in this town, that they know, and I think it's a minimum 30-day out in the process. And I'll touch on the filming in a minute, but in general, the whole logic was that, ever since I was first on council, we had groups that would come in and, quite frankly, come to the council and say, we want to have an event in this town, or we want to have a concert, we want to have a rodeo, and the council would just debate it over and over again, and we're not experts in that field. We don't know what the return on investment is for the town, what the cost is on the town. So we were really kind of doing our gut and seeing if it really, matched what the feel was in town. So this gives a group in the town that will really evaluate the program that wants to come in. What is the cost? What is the return on investment? And it's not just dollars. I mean, this committee has when we had this debate with the council, they have agreed that it's sometimes Pro Cycling Challenge, for instance, is probably one of the most significant events and I'm not a biker, but to me it's one of the most significant events that this town has ever done. And the marketing value, forget sales tax, and yet you can debate that. Some have seen an increase, some have not. But the reality is the marketing value to this town and the image that is created. So I think they're big enough thinkers to think about it's not just the dollars and cents in sales tax revenue, but it's what's the image of town. And the other way too. I mean, what does somebody want to do in this town that may be a negative impact? Now, when you talk about filming, there was a debate on the council. Right. There was very clearly those on council that are very supportive of allowing filming in the town. But we also want to be sensitive to what does it mean? Do we close down a street in March during
a busy time?
Busy time. We've got spring breakers here in the town. So I think the way we left it is, I think even the people that represented the filming were there, and again, were given the opportunity to speak to the council, and were heard. I think they were really heard, and Ann Lucas, I believe, who seems to be the most significant player, I think is happy finally to have a process that she can at least go to. And the committee has agreed, I think the Breck Tourism Office heard us loud and clear that be sensitive, that may not be 30 days out. That when it comes to filming, they're going to identify perhaps a person on the staff that can get the request and then bring it to maybe the executive committee, see if it's something that you want to entertain, and if they may not. But if they are willing to and they can work with it and it makes sense for the town, they're going to be sensitive to the timing issue. So I think it's the beginning steps. I think we're going to walk before we run. It's not going to be perfect. The system's not going to be perfect, but it's not perfect now.
Right.
But at least now we have people looking at the real issues. Breckenridge is becoming so popular and busy. And so the last thing we want to do is just to add events. We want to add them because they make sense and they're a good fit for the town of Breckenridge.
Which is what other communities are doing right now also.
Exactly.
The competitive set is really to do it well.
In fact, Vail they're actually going out and looking for those events that make sense for Vail. Right. We've been fortunate. We're getting so many requests right now at our events, although, what we used to call mud season or shoulder is not even anymore. It's just anymore. We have winter, spring, summer, fall seasons. We don't have a mud season or shoulder season anymore.
We were joking today about how even during construction, which used to be done during those shoulder seasons, anymore the businesses say that's not quiet anymore.
I know, and we went through that with the sidewalks.
Right.
And really the town is so limited to when we can do public projects. Yeah. But we're sensitive to it. We now understand that. That's a good problem to have. Right. Those are the good problems that we could talk about.
The other thing the council did over the last month is had a couple joint meetings, which you do pretty regularly with our partner groups out there. Just want to hit a couple quick highlights of maybe some of those topics. We had our Board of County Commissioners in. We also had our Breck Creative Arts, which is our new group that the council formed to run the Arts District and the Riverwalk Center. Some good discussions there about things we're doing together, but also some challenges looking down the road about how these models are going to work. The Board of County Commissioners, I think, was more kind of updating. I think that was a great meeting. We talked about the 450. We talked about the new roundabout across Fairview. We're going to do that jointly to landscape that so it doesn't look like a big mound of dirt. So that was really a kind of a let's get together that we always do and talk about the common interest and the common issues. We talked about the recycling center. So I think those are pretty straightforward that we probably have already covered. But the Breckenridge Creative Arts is going to be an interesting one. They've got a real significant board right now. I think they've got great people on the board, got a great chairman, but we're going to go through some hiccups. And what I mean by that is that we've got facilities in this town that the town is spending significant dollars on. The Arts District, probably upwards toward $4 million. We now have the old Masonic Hall, which is Abbey Hall, but now the old Masonic Hall that we're renovating to the tune of $1.9 million. We've got the Breckenridge Theater coming up. We've got the Riverwalk Center discussion that we're going to probably have at our retreat about the front of the house. And so these are significant dollars that the town is spending on our infrastructure and our facilities.
And the debate is now becoming what is the rates we charge, for instance. And the Breck Creative Arts is doing more than just that, but that seemed to take the focus of the meeting. Because it's a sensitive issue. We have a lot of nonprofits in this town that have used our facilities for years, probably complimentary in most cases. And then we have what we call our resident organizations, like the NRO, the National Repertory Orchestra, the BMF, Breckenridge Music Festival, and the Backstage Theater, which is now the Breckenridge Theater, and Film Festival. So we've got what we call resident organizations and then nonprofits. And so we had a healthy debate. I think there are some on council that are concerned that we've gone so dramatically up on the cost, probably immediately. But I think we got some pretty clear clarifications from the board. We got clarification. I think they also heard the will of the council that, let's figure out what is the will of the council. We have not really decided.
Exactly.
Quite frankly, as a council, do we want to fund all the nonprofits? And is a nonprofit that benefits our community different from one that doesn't benefit our community, but they would like to use our facilities? So we do have a process called a grant cycle. And we talked about that perhaps if the council feels so inclined to, give comps or to really give significant discounts on some of our facilities, that we need to educate some of these nonprofits how to fill out these grants and when to fill them out. And then at that point, through the grant process. But very clearly, we have this nonprofit organization that's now been formed to run our facilities, very much like the Heritage Alliance, runs our historical buildings and facilities.
And we kind of had the same debate with them about whether to charge or not to charge.
Right, we really did.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a growing process, and we'll figure it out. But I think one thing is clear, that the cultural arts, the board, Breckenridge Cultural Arts Organization, their job is to run our facilities and run them efficiently and to run them well, and to look at programming that makes sense for Breckenridge. So we don't want to tie their hands either and just say carte blanche, anybody can just have these facilities free of charge. But we also want to be sensitive to the organizations. I think what we heard very clearly as councils, and we hear from them at City Market and in our businesses, that the BMF and the NRO, they were all donors when the original Riverwalk Center was built, and when it went from a tent to inside. And so this council is very sensitive to the fact that it's a community building. We want to be sensitive to that. I think the Cultural Arts Board heard that loud and clear, and I think they're pretty astute people. They're going to figure it out, but I don't think it's not over yet. And what I mean by that is I think it's just we're going to have to walk before we run, but we'll get through it. I mean, this community has great citizens. It's a great board. We have a great BMF and NRO, and the Film Festival have great people working on it. The Backstage Theater, now the Breckenridge Theater folks, are really committed, but we want to do it right.
Okay. It seems like the council's challenge many times is it's easy to give things away for free, but somewhere that costs you, and can you afford to do all those all the time? Well, I think that's always a great debate the council has on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and I think that was, I think when the board came and presented to us, what we did see, probably for the first time in writing, or at least clearly, I don't know if we got it in writing, but they're going to get it to us, but very clear we had a transparent presentation that showed us what the real costs are.
Sure, right.
I'm not sure we ever really knew that before.
Not with all new facilities, that's true. Right. And the new programming.
And I think also because, Tim, the town staff has been so lean, quite frankly, they were doing a lot of other jobs. So they were charged over different areas. So we now have a $2.4 million budget that the town is funding. So it's not just chump change. I mean, we need to really keep an eye on it. I think our citizens would expect us to do that. Sure. And as I mentioned before, we've got a brand new facility, the Abbey Hall, going to be opening now. Masonic Hall, that's going to be opening, so people are going to want to use that. We've got all the Arts District and the theater that's going to be opening, and we've kind of gone through that with the Speakeasy. Mm-hmm. This council was very clearly committed to the Speakeasy, but we also want to make sure that if we invested that kind of money into it, that it would be available for other things in this town when it's free. That's I think an example how that can work.
Great discussions you had this past month. Pretty tough to just in 2 meetings to do all that talking, huh?
That's why John left town.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Mark, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to really get through a lot of these topics to help the public get a good breath of that it's not always easy decisions.
Right.
It's a lot of people putting their minds together, along with the public that comes
Right.
in. And we want to remind everybody that, of course, the town website is always available for additional information, town staff, and the grocery store and
Yeah.
the post office always.
So my wife won't shop with me anymore. But our meetings.
And obviously
come to
the
our
meetings.
meetings.
Every other Tuesday, the second and fourth Tuesdays, we have work sessions starting at 3, council meetings at 7:30, and public is always welcome. Plus, you can listen in.
That's right.
Live to our meetings. We stream those.
If you want to do that, you probably don't have much going on in your life.
A lot of opportunity to stay in touch with what's going on. But Mark did a great job with getting into some of the depth. And we want to thank you for tuning in to this month's version of Breck Buzz, and we'll be back again next month for another version.